Think we're okay? Yeah. Hi, it's Elena, and I'm enchanted for you to be here on my channel. Hello, and welcome to our wonderful witchy book club, Book Coven. It's a Book Coven. It's rebranded. It's fancy now. It's spooky. Hi. So we are continuing on going over our book, Elemental Witchcraft by Heron Michelle. And I'm excited to share these things with you. Don't worry if you couldn't make it to the live here. You can always rewatch it later. That's going to be available constantly. And, to get more notifications or to be reminded that I have a book club going on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, the whole shebang, and, join my little witchy family, my little YouTube community. And I don't know, enjoy some magic. So we're continuing on with this book. As I previously mentioned, we are discussing pages 133 until 148. And if you have a Kindle, not exactly a book, not something that has, page numbers, or it's not lining up with the book that I have here, it is starting from the Meditation 3, Axis Mundi Tree, and until, where is it? Wait, no, sorry. And until the fivefold self. So those are the things that we're going to be going over. We are in chapter 7, and I'm very excited to keep this conversation going, all that fun stuff. Okay, I'm starting off with my favorite quote from this section, and if you have your favorite quote or favorite saying or something you found super interesting, give it a comment down below or share it here, and that kind of thing. So my comment is from page 141. Again, I don't really know exactly how to map that one out because it's not super easy. It's after the figure 60. How's that? The quote goes, "When we are open, balanced, and flowing freely through all worlds, this allows us to respond to any challenges effectively rather than remaining slaves to our reactions." I really, really love that. It just, I don't know, it kind of just made sense to me right away, or resonated with it really well. It's definitely a lot easier said than done to be, balanced and flowing freely and just open, that kind of thing. So, it's a work of progress, but I definitely agree that it helps us overcome challenges, and it helps us to assess situations better and know how to, proceed forward to the best of our abilities. All right, starting off at the beginning of our reading section in regards to the Meditation 3. She provides like the preparation, what you need for it, that sort of thing, and then she goes over a guided, well written out meditation on how you're able to access your roots and how you can breathe through the elements and just help ground yourself and be involved with connecting to the energies and your guides and that sort of thing. I don't really follow guided meditations from other sources other than like myself and things that I came up with and things that I wrote. It's just my own preference. It's just what I'm comfortable with. I'm not entirely sure why, but I feel like it's a sense of a boundary that I'm not really fully interested in crossing. But if guided meditations work for you and you're able to go through this and enjoy the practice, and I'm happy that you do. Continue on with it. I just can't really say much about it because I didn't actually do this one. Now, after the meditation, if you did go through that meditation, please let me know how it went, how you felt about it, and just kind of what your experience was with it for others who might be interested to give it a try. Now we are in chapter 7, Energy, Body, and the Pentacle Self. And she provides more graphs or more figures like a textbook, which I think is absolutely amusing and makes it feel like an official study into the spiritual paths. So she talks about how she began and what she used to think of herself, and that when she's Issy, that was my dog. That's kind of what distracted me. So I found it overall interesting, and I want to know your thoughts in regards to body versus being. And she talked about when she started studying modern witchcraft and attuned as a Reiki energy healer, and that our anatomy extends far beyond our skin rather than a little spiritual driving an organism machine, which I think is a good way of putting it. And I agree with her in how our spirituality, our soul, our spirit, our everything is more than what can be perceived by the eye, the mundane, in this timeline and wavelength, that kind of thing. And I love how she talks about the extensions of ourselves further on in the pentacle path, or the 5-pointed plan she goes over. So next she talks about a holistic approach to balance wholeness, and she explains that wholeness is based upon the interconnection between consciousness and the body. So overlapping your own thoughts, your present mindset with your body, and how your body is interacting with the outside world. I also want to add to it that it's good to also interconnect not only your consciousness, but your unconsciousness or the subconscious, as well as the shadow work aspect of your spiritual self. So I'm kind of like adding additions to her holistic approach with my belief of other things that kind of just involve us as an individual. And she also mentions that we are mostly non-physical. So we have, the body, our presentness here, now, currently, but the other aspects that I mentioned in regards to being interconnected and just bringing it all together so that you understand your energies and everything better are non-tangible concepts, like your conscious, your unconscious, your spirit, shadow self, and all of that. And those are all big parts of you. Then she says that then she points out and mentions that your body is like a beautiful blooming flower as your consciousness creates physical reality. And I just thought that was nice. Then she goes over how all of these layers, and when all of these layers are in balance with each other, we feel at ease, and that there's no disruption and no dis-ease. Now, dis-ease and disease are a little bit different in regards to the spiritual self and this definition of it. But the spiritual dis-ease can lead to the physical disease and sometimes they're interconnected, and sometimes they're not. It's just your body. I want to kind of read that section just to go over it, and I like the way she words things. When all these layers of self are in balance with each other, we feel at ease. When there is a disruption, we feel dis-ease. That dis-ease will eventually be mirrored through our many layers of self if we don't correct the issue in a timely fashion. And I don't know exactly what she means by timely fashion, because time works differently in not the physical realm. Then abiding stress, frustration, anger, worry, anxiety, and even seasonal blooms are forms of dis-ease that should not be discounted. Otherwise, they may manifest as more serious forms of physical illness or misfortune. And that's like something I already mentioned a little bit earlier. That kind of thing. I completely agree with her. I think it is a very true statement. I'm still learning and finding ways to help balance myself and connect all of that. But I think throughout my over 19 years of experience, I learned a thing or two. So I share a little bit of that knowledge throughout my channel. I want to share the figure that she has offered here. And I will also make a copy of this and add it to the blog post that's going to be a follow-up and more of like cohesive dive into what we went over today. And I'll link that down in the comment section later when it's get posted. Moving on to the next page. She talks about that the greater part of witchcraft is about conquering our fear of lack of love and knowing ourselves within and without. I think that's a very deep statement, but I'm not sure if that is what witchcraft is represented for me. I do think that, conquering the fear of lack of love and knowing ourselves within and without is a part of it, especially the knowing ourselves within and without. But I also think that witchcraft is including knowing the isness and how you're interacting with it, how your energies are interacting with it, and how you're able to pull on the isness, that knowledge, that connection between you and the universe, your guides, energies, whichever path you practice, the deities, however is your thing, because it's a little bit different for everybody. I think that type of connection is also very important under the concept of witchcraft. At least for me, that's how I see things. So I think, again, she has like a good start to it, but I don't think it's has all the juicy details. A little funny thing that she says: when we're born, first things first, we have to figure out how to drive the meat suit, taking care of our physical needs until we are independent and self-sufficient. I like that. That's kind of from the start, the learning to walk, to talk, to eat without help. And she talks about further on, as you mature and grow, your senses to the non-physical things expand, and how you're able to connect with it, sense it more, and just follow your intuition forward. I think I explained that okay. That kind of came out a little bit choppy. maybe you can provide an example. For example, younger children, such as, I don't know, maybe toddler-ish age until before puberty-ish hits. I think that's like the right age group thing. Tend to be way more excited about everything, asking questions to learn things. I mean, that's just a standard thing of growing up. But they're also more sensitive towards the else, the other stuff that's out there, which ends up manifesting in like there's a monster under my bed, or I have an imaginary friend, or sometimes they're able to recall their past lives and have full on memories of things that have happened before they came to be. And if you end up like doing a deep dive into like the whole reincarnation concept, and the kids, the younger children talking about their past life and what they remember, it's just like there have been a lot of situations in that regard, and I think it's fascinating. So I like how she mentions that, you know, we first start off at the base of our worlds and figure out our physical sense until that is handled. Is that a way to put it? And you're able to further your reach to the other things. But around the time when puberty-ish hits, and when the whole human need to follow the societal norms we're in and to fit in and to just be approved by their peers, their groups, their parents, whatever, etc., that sort of connection, or their sort of senses kind of get dulled down because they end up being labeled as weird or different or just odd, that kind of thing. I mean, I had that experience where I would talk about what I had, what I went through, and they'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I'll go like, oh. Big example is I have lucid dreams. I've always been able to lucid dream. So ever since I was a kid, I pretty much never experienced a nightmare. I would, if I'm sleeping and the dream kind of starts, and like something scary or uncomfortable or I don't like ends up happening, I would be like, no, I don't like that. Let me just rewrite the script and have the dream and sleep through what I enjoy. And I remember oh so clearly in elementary school when my little friend group was kind of like talking about things and all of that. And I think we were going over the dreams or something in regards to sleep, or maybe it was around nap time. I'm not sure. That friend group, one of the girls from it was talking about how she doesn't want to take a nap because she had a nightmare last night and she doesn't want a new one. And I looked at her and I'm just like, well, why did you let it happen? You can just change it to something you like. And she's staring at me. No, hold on. Before elementary school, what I'm talking about, nap time. Preschool. Is it preschool that you have nap time with? Whichever the grade level is nap time with. Yeah, elementary, I wish. You need nap time in high schools or colleges. That's where the nap times are most effective. Okay, so the grade level where nap times were still a thing. And she mentioned the nightmares, and I told her that you could just change it. It did not go over well with anybody who heard it, and they were like, well, what do you mean change it? And I'm just like, it's kind of like, isn't it kind of like a movie in your head? And you can decide what's playing. Like, you can kind of flip through the channels. And that's how I explained it. And that was not a thing anybody else has went through. So, you know, me sharing that kind of like part of what I've had is just has just been kind of like dampened down. So yeah, that's that. Proceeding forward, there was another thing that she kind of talked about. Hello, thank you for hopping in. Another thing my puppy is here. I don't know if you could see her snoot. Maybe. Come here. Her snoot is right there. I don't think you could see her. And she's just wanting attention. No, go. Another thing she points out that I think is way harder said than done. She really emphasizes it. She goes, you have to relax. Stressed out anxiety is the clenched opposite, and yet that is the major problem of modern life we all must overcome. When we are at ease, we've relaxed the tension held along each polarity. We've reconciled the paradox. Yeah, let's all just, stop the stress, flip the switch. I wish that was as easy as the statement here. Hello to anybody who is in the chat. I'm glad you're able to join. Now, she also applies the same wisdom with all our other layers of being. And that if we tightly guard our hearts against the potential pain of heartbreak, there's no space left to receive the potential joy. No, hold on. If we tightly guard our hearts against potential heartbreak, there's no space left to receive the potential joy of love that would heal that wound. We go through life with a clenched fist and greedy with our resources. That hand will never open to receive true spiritual abundance. If we lock down our minds in fearful fundamentalism, we will never experience the eureka of fresh and liberating perspective. If we freeze up from our fear of failure, never doing what needs to be done, we'll never know the thrill of victory. We only ever see our spirits as locked within the particular nationality, race, sex, or style of meat suit we happen to be wearing. Then we may never strip off the bindings and go skinny dipping in the boundless sea of divine love. I like that. I like how she mentions a very common limitation or experience that I'm pretty sure any human being has gone through at one point or other in their life, and most likely multiple times. And I love how she talks about not letting that be a thing that holds you back and not something that will prevent you from moving forward and seeing past it and learning and developing and evolving, that sort of thing. So I really enjoy that statement, and I think that is a really good philosophy to kind of incorporate or keep in the back of your mind. Her, philosophy and proclamation to just relax and ease all the stress is also great, but it's also not as easily accomplished. Another thing I kind of came across in regards to, the relaxing and the stress and just learning to get past the restrictions your own brain can set on you is a quote I came across. I think it might have been maybe on Instagram or on one of those little platforms that I was like doom scrolling at the time. And the quote goes, well, I'm not exactly quoting it completely, But the concept of that quote is, if you are someone who constantly overthinks everything, and it's something that's based on your, and it's something that's just like a part of you that you're not really able to control. If you're, you know, a neurospicy person such as myself, it is it is a part of me. It's not going anywhere. But if you are a person who constantly overthinks things, overanalyzes things, over like perfects things, and that is something that I do way too often. Don't wait, hold on. Try not to, basically. But of course, it's kind of an impossible task to just not to overthink. So if you can't stop the overthinking, make sure to also overthink on all the positive outcomes that could happen that you're overthinking the negative outcomes on. And that just hit like, whoa, like so good for me, because it is something that I constantly go through. And it helped me realize that, okay, the overthinking that I have done were always either like on the neutralish to the negative type of outcomes, so that I can prepare myself for like the worst, and to make sure that I can, you know, handle the situation when something bad happens. And I didn't realize that I never thought about the positive things that could result in said situation. And I didn't really prepare myself on how I will respond to the positive outcomes of whatever I'm going through. There's a request for teaching a spell for a practitioner, because to teaching a protection spell. I think protection spells are not only as a spell form, but they're also as a grounding form. And I'll try to go over something like that and include it in my content, because I do think it's a good thing to present. I think I might have mentioned something along those lines in one of my past videos, but it's a good thing to kind of like bring again. And then somebody mentioned that can't stop overthinking because of my ADHD. Same. High five to the neurospicy. Back to that overthinking part. Adding in the overthinking for the good things, the positive things, helped me kind of not focus on the negative outcomes. And it actually kind of slowed down that overthinking train and preventing it from like derailing and spiraling into where it's not really supposed to go. And it also helped me to focus on the better things that could happen. And that type of energy is an attraction to the world of manifesting more of the good things rather than the bad things. I would highly recommend that practice if it's an innate part of you, the overthinking. Yeah. Okay, proceeding forward. She talks about opening the channels of the 5 bodies, such as the mental lock, the lock of will, emotional lock, physical lock, spiritual lock, and the spiritual lock. Then she goes over how to, quote unquote, delete the old programming and help you connect with the minds of the divine, or accessing the divine, and that's for the mental lock. She goes over to it like really briefly. Maybe she might be expanding on it further in the future, I like how she mentions these locks, but I also feel that it's kind of a thin way to explain how to overcome that mental lock and that sort of thing. Yeah. In regards to the lock of will, how the witching agenda is to freely align our personal will with the divine. Yes and no. I don't think we need to align our will with the will of the divine or the deities or whatever is out there. I feel like we need to align our personal will with the way our path is going, with the universal's kind of plan for our highest potential. I wouldn't exactly call it the divine. I feel like the divine really puts it into like a box, and that somebody else is on purpose controlling yourself and expanding the universe and kind of like bringing in the concept of the fates is a little less like controlling, because your best potential or your most highest outcomes change day by day based on how you interact with other people, how you interact with the energies, how you interact with something as simple as making a decision of drinking a coffee or not drinking coffee. That kind of changes your trajectory. Wow, okay. That kind of changes your trajectory, which means you constantly need to, not constantly, which means you often need to take a pause and reflect and see how you are currently feeling within this space, and to see how you are currently aligned with how things will work out for you in the future. I feel like taking that thought process is a lot less the gods deciding when you were born that this is what you're going to become. No, you make your own choices, but you are guided by the universe and your own experiences on how to be the best version of yourself and be the most favorite version of yourself. Okay. Going over the emotional lock and how we need to heal our hearts through a connection to, again, divine love. I think, again, the divinity part is a little bit limiting. I need to trim my bangs. I've been messing with them the entire video, and it's annoying me, and I'm pretty sure it's annoying you too, so whatever. The emotional lock, she also talks about facing our shadowy fears, forgiving ourselves, and releasing those old wounds. I also think that facing our shadow self is alongside the spiritual lock as well, and not just the emotional part, but the emotional part will be a huge factor towards your shadow self and how you experience the world, that kind of thing. You know, past traumas or past experiences, or just past memories that you can't let go of or can't stop thinking about, both positive and negative. Then she says that accepting our whole beautiful selves, all shadow and light, grit and squish, hunger and disgust is our challenge. Yes. And to open the emotional lock requires deep inner journey work, courageously undertaken. And it is not a journey that is easy to start or easy to go through or easy to complete. And I honestly think that, going through your shadow self is a never ending experience, and that's not something that you'd ever kind of complete. But you will learn a whole lot while you do so. I do offer, private guidances and things to help you alongside with your shadow work. So you can check that out on my website if you're feeling curious, or if that's something that's been on your mind you wanted to pursue forward, or if you just want to know a good place to start and how you can kind of get that little like motivation to get your momentum and move forward. The book that's also added, as I mentioned before, into our book chat meetings. It's not one that I'm going to be going over today because I did not get a full chance to catch up on the things that I was supposed to catch up on because it's already Wednesday, and how did the whole week pass really quickly. Now, that second book will help us work on the shadowy self of ourselves, and I think kind of opening it up into our community, into my little, witchy book coven, and just being open about certain things from my experiences might help others to also get their footing for that part. I'm looking forward to it. Again, subscribe, push that little bell button, join the club, the coven. Next is the physical lock, and she talks about how important self-care is. Again, I agree with it completely. You need to take moments and give yourself, the care, the grace, and the acceptance that you would for a dear friend. One of the things that I learned is if a friend is asking for help or, is going through a tough situation, and I kind of talk to them about it and help them through it and just provide some insight and guidance, and I tell them that, it's okay. You need to feel your feelings. It's good that you're sharing, that you're expressing things, that you're allowing yourself to have those, emotional moments and not lock down, so that you're able to move past it and just kind of let them know that they're beyond their current situation and they will, move forward and it get better. And again, during my reflections, I'm just like, okay, so if I tell my friend that expressed their, big mistake, or that they wish that they would have done something else or whatever, that it's okay to do so, that I know they have potential to do better, that they will do better, that, that thing is not going to hold them back. I don't really tell that to myself. I kind of just hold myself way more accountable for no real reason. And that causes a lot more, stress and negative feelings towards, myself. Not really celebrating the wins I had over my time, and not really like noticing just how much more positive things I went through compared to like the negative things, which is why I'm bringing up, I'm adding in the monthly ritual I'm doing through my blog post and through the newsletters that I'm having. The newsletters, and like they're going to be little like clips of it, but with the blog posts, I'm going to introduce a new ritual for every month, and it's a reflection ritual that I'll be doing and sharing with you publicly. I will keep it in blog format. I don't really want to do a video format for it because it will give me the time to word myself properly and to help you kind of see in my perspective. While if I do it in a video, it just, I feel like it might just go by too quickly, or it's not something that I can, like, how do I put it? Freely talk about? I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Anyways, it's going to stay in the blog format because that is what I'm currently most comfortable with, and I feel like that is just going to be the easiest way to open up to my community and share it and just get your insight on it, or get your experiences if you're following along with the same ritual. Yeah, and I would love for you to do so. I will have more of that information up and available. I think there's glimpses of it available in the current newsletter that's posted. I am going into a bit more detail of it in the 2026 I'm back, hello, kind of update video that's going to be posted later today. And I think I will make a post specifically for it and just kind of explaining how I'm going to go about it and welcoming you to try it yourself, so that it's just, it'll be more organized, maybe. It'll be easier for you to follow along. Okay, yeah, that's the way to put it. So I'm going to have like a little bit of a map type of thing available for you to join me on this reflection ritual that we'll be doing every month. Yay! So it'll be easier for you to kind of just get into it. Now, you don't have to share it. That like little pathway thing is going to be available for free. You can absolutely do it in private. I would just recommend that you do it, either all of it or part of it, or just however it'll go. Highly encouraged. It'll be great for your growth and your understanding of yourself and just getting into that shadowy aspect of you. Okay, I completely veered off of what we were talking about. Then, oh yes, sorry, self-care. It felt fluid to kind of get into what I just talked about, but here we are. And the self-care is getting past the physical lock. So if you take care of, your body and yourself, you give yourself the pauses that you need, you're able to have the energy to move forward with all the things that a spiritual path will lead you on. Okay. Then she goes over the spiritual lock. And I feel like the other things kind of also intertwine with it. For example, the shadow work or the self-care. I feel like that is also a big part of overcoming the spiritual lock. And how she talks about where, like, overcoming all the previous ones, and once you get to the spiritual lock, it's a way towards realizing our inner divinity and opening our spirit as a conduit of divine power. Yes, I agree that these locks should be worked on. I do not really agree that it needs to be an isolated event, because it's all interconnected. If it works for you to just like make a list and only focus on, okay, this, month, week, whatever, I'm going to be focusing only on, let's go easy, the physical lock of myself, making sure I take care of my self-care, my body, the needs that this physical realm requires. That is going to be my focus. It's great, but if you move on from, that step and go forward towards the spiritual part, or the I don't know, the emotional part, then you kind of stop focusing on that self-care. It goes towards like the back of your mind, because you are now consciously dedicating it to another like thing to kind of check off. I don't think that's a good way to go about it, because you're not connecting all of it. You're just taking chunks and pieces, and then hoping that once you get to that spiritual lock achievement, the spiritual lock, how else to put it, obstacle, you're missing the other parts to connect it. You're not exactly missing, like you did the work, but it's something that hasn't been present with you throughout the whole thing. So my recommendation, and things that I have gone through, is to find little things to work on all of these, locks and other parts of yourself, and just take little bites consistently of all of them throughout your entire life journey, not just a set timeline or a specific, month, year, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And what I mean by like tiny bites, for example, building up the good habits, building up habits that will then increase in better habits and better choices and better decisions. And what is considered better is up to you, a you thing. It's different for everybody else. So one of the things that I enjoy doing is doing a morning reflection and an evening reflection. And that's been a habit that I feel like it checks off the mental lock, because I am reflecting on how my mind started my morning, how my sleep was, how I felt waking up, if I had any, specific thoughts right as it goes, that kind of thing. That sort of stuff. So it hits the mental lock part. The lock of will is to aligning, ourselves with our progress and where we're hoping to be, intending to be, going to be. Because I can see, because a part of the reflection is like, what are my main tasks for today? What is it that I want to accomplish today? Doesn't mean I do accomplish them, but the intention is there. The intention is there. It also hits the emotional lock, because it is a reflection of myself, for myself, of my things, of what I'm doing. And it hits the physical lock, because it is a form of self-care. I am slowing down. I am reflecting on how my body is doing. And it's, part of a little ritual that kind of just helps me start the day and helps me end the day, that kind of thing. And like the evening reflections include how my day went, what were the outcomes, what were the wins. And it really, like, I have a little journal that I got as a gift, and I've been going through that, and it's almost complete. And I want to kind of like do a different one and add other little points so that I can deepen the mornings and the evenings. And I will do that. I'll maybe share that with you, or how it goes. I'm not entirely sure. I have ideas for like making journals and planners and like little workbooks and publishing them, but I'm not entirely sure how to go about the whole, publishing it in a book format. Like I could provide, prints on my website, and I can provide kind of like, I don't know, homemade DIY little things for you to do. But I want it to be a little bit more like fancy and official feeling and just presentable. The only like easy thing I kind of found was doing like the Amazon publishing stuff, but it doesn't really do the thing that I want to do. So maybe I'll figure that out, because I have like a lot of outlines for things that have helped me, and maybe they'll help you too. I don't know. Okay. Then those sort of reflections also hit on that spiritual lock, because again, I'm reflecting on all of me, not only how I'm currently feeling, but the things that I have experienced. And sort of. So those are like the little bites that I would recommend for you to just incorporate slowly, not everything at once, so that you're not exactly like super enthused and excited for like the first 2 weeks, and then something happens, you're not able to continue all of the things you wanted to do, and then you kind of like get that, guilt and hesitation to go back to it, and then it just becomes overwhelming, and then nothing goes positive from it in the long run. You just kind of like had that big spark of enthusiasm, and it slowly kind of just like, and then you kind of feel bad about it, and you're not happy with yourself that you were not able to do the things you wanted to do. You know what I mean? Is that something you go through, or is that just a me thing? I think it might be a maybe a neurospicy thing, or just a human thing. I don't know, but that's been my experience. So I have learned to just start small, reward myself for the consistency, and build up on it. Like one of the things that I have done is do my Duolingo for German. It's not like the best thing, but I feel like it's the but I feel it's just a little bit helpful, helps me build up my vocabulary and whatever. In my entire life, I have told myself and I've believed that I am incapable of being consistent with something. And maybe that was one of my mental blocks, and which is why I wasn't able to be consistent with something. And Duolingo has those streaks that you do, and they have like streak freezes that they provide you. Like there's 2 streak freezes, but if you have good progress, you collect points, gems. And if something does happen and you go past those 2 streak freezes, you're able to use your accomplishment. How do I put it? Your accomplishment currency, stash, bank, your accomplishment savings. Yeah. To extend the streak, to not break it, whatever. And if you have friends that you're doing streaks with, or like doing stuff together, and you miss a streak freeze, they can help you out by like gifting you a streak freeze. Now, I know this is a very odd example to bring into the spiritual aspect or into the aspect of habit forming, but I have a over 200-ish day streak now, that it hasn't been, completely every single day, absolutely how it's supposed to be. I have used those little, perks, the streak freezes, the, the given pauses, or my friends have helped me out to like keep it up, to keep that, streak freeze. And I like took a step back and saw that, okay, I can be consistent. I have over 200, I think it might be 220, 250 maybe even. Whatever. 200 is still a pretty big number to be consistent with. I can do other things with the same consistency and give myself grace if I need to take a pause for a day, 2, 3. And I have friends that can help uplift me and motivate me to continue with it. And that realization kind of like helped to let me know that, yeah, I can be consistent. I am consistent. I have been consistent. What do you mean I'm telling myself that I'm constantly inconsistent? That's not true. So there's the mental block that I overcame. Okay, I think 2025 was like a really big year for all of my growth and reflections now that I'm kind of like sharing all this stuff with you. Good. Yay. It's going to make my 2026 and the future things, even better. Wow. Okay. Somebody mentioned that it's the dopamine of new stuff wearing off. I think that was in regards to my habits, like the 2 weeks and then the drop, and it gets harder to maintain things. Yes, that's pretty much what it is. I call it my dopamine demons. They get hungry and they're not getting enough of the thing that they want to keep going. Okay. I I like that Duolingo example. Do you like that example? That kind of came out of the blue. Okay. Yeah. See, more locks I've unlocked. Somebody has lucky numbers of 6 and 13. Nice. 13 is my lucky number. And I have favorite numbers. I don't know why. I mentioned this previously in channels. I like the number 3 and I like the number 9. Just a quirk. I guess some people have favorite numbers because somebody's mentioned those things as well. All right. She further talks about connecting your chi, your yin and yang, your qui, chi. However, I'm not entirely sure how to properly pronounce it. And that it's manifested through an interplay between active yang and passive yin modes, which define the cosmos through their 5 element systems of wood, metal, earth, water, and fire. This kind of like the element of wood is not something I have encountered very often through like my teachings. I am interested to see what she means by it, but I don't know how I feel about it. Anyways, and then she talks about different religions and how they're like interconnected with similar concepts. So in regards to the Japanese system of healing, such as Reiki, in Hawaiian spirituality, it's called mana. Then there's, hold on. How there's also similar concepts introduced through like fictional events, such as, Star Wars, and how they called it the Force. Then in Hindu systems, it's called the prana, which means, life force. And all of those things. And again, I love that she very often provides the connections between these thoughts, ideas, practices, all of the things that encompass, witchcraft and pagan paths, and how it's not just a unique thing or a new thing or just an experimental thing. It points out how it's been a fundamental baseline for humanity in your heightened, let me find the words, in your heightened connections to it all. I think that's the way to say it. So she further brings in the auras, the chakras, and what she calls our fivefold self. And she talks about her techniques and how she uses both Eastern and Western traditions and how kind of like things works. And she goes over the aura and how and what like the aura kind of means and how it's like a field which is outside of our body, outside of like the physical self. I do like how she mentions that there's more than just the standard 7 chakras, more than just like the standard common known 7 chakras, and that it's past that, expands past that. There's like more layers for it, but she is only focusing on like the main 7. I don't really know if I want to call it like the main 7, but maybe I would call it the 7 sections of ourselves, which do have like further expansions. So kind of like a tree branch. So kind of like is a tree branch a good way to put it? Or like a flow chart. So we have like, this is the main topic, and then that topic has other topics, and then the other topics can like branch out into like further topics, and how it's just kind of all connected. So you have, you and your spirituality, then you have your emotional, spiritual, conscious, subconscious, whatever, and then it goes into like the chakras and so on and so forth, like a whole thing. Okay, somebody mentioned that George Lucas was well into the occult and based a lot of Star Wars on certain occult teachings. Ooh, okay, I have never heard of that. I've honestly never really seen Star Wars completely, but I know the gist of it, the majority of it. Oops, I just couldn't get into the whole Star Wars thing. But that is a fascinating thing to know. If you're able to find that YouTube video on it, please link it down like in the comments once this is, once this is published and available, because that might be something other people might be interested in, and that's something I would definitely love to check out. I never heard that he was into the occult. So what do I think about esoteric Buddhism? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really sure what you mean by esoteric, but in regards to Buddhism, there is a lot of their kind of like practices and beliefs that I think blend into the spirituality and witchcraft aspect of things. Yeah. And then the first 3 are great, the rest not so much. Are you talking about like the Star Wars movie? Maybe at some point I will get to it eventually. Maybe you could convince me to do so. I don't know. All right, on to like the chakra things. She says, she defines chakras that are, the chakras are within a layer of the auric field close to our skin. We also have energy organs called chakras. So, okay, so she goes over like the concept of it. Within a layer of the auric field, of our own auric field, close to our skin, we also have energy organs called chakras. I like how she labels it as energy organs because it is an organ. It's a part of the human body that needs to function properly in order for things to work properly, such as your stomach, your liver, your heart, etc. So I definitely like the way that she puts it into that format. And yeah, she also said, like, just like we have physical organs and circulatory system that regulate the flow of blood, hormones, and digestion throughout our biology, we also have energy organs that regulate the flow of elemental energy from the above of our subtle bodies into the below of our physical bodies. A chakra, the word chakra means wheel or vortex, and that there are 7 main chakras or organs. Again, I wouldn't really say that like they're the main thing, but like kind of the headers of like the chapters under it. And she does mention the additional chakras within our auric field, various parts. And so like she first, what we're talking about is the chakras that are kind of closest to us and contribute high and have the highest contribution to our, you know, day-to-day everything else that happens. And there are other parts of our auric field, I forgot how to pronounce it. Our aura? Auric? There are other parts of our auric. Why does that sound weird now? Of our field. What the fuck? Of our field, and it that also interact with everything, but the further they are, the less direct influence they have on our like day-to-day basis, and the more interaction they have of what is out there beyond ourselves. At least that's just how I see it. So okay, saying that, I'm assuming the movies doesn't, if not worth it if it doesn't appeal. Saw them, was really young, don't think would feel the same. No. Okay, yeah, that's okay. There's a great channel, New Thinking Aloud, run by a parapsychologist. Ooh, that interviews many academics about these various topics. Okay, that is really interesting. Another thing that I could totally check out. Now, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I wasn't able to fully finish that fancy piece of paper in the US before I moved to Germany, but along my studies in psychology, I did have formal training as a therapist, and I am licensed as a therapist. So I love to bring in the psychological aspects of ourselves and the kind of like scientific proven, in quotations marks, of things that happen within like our mind, that kind of thing. Because just because it's scientifically proven doesn't mean that that's the only thing, and just because it's not, you know, fully scientifically disproven or not checked in, that doesn't mean it's not a concept. So I love to blend the, you know, my magical practice and the mundane of things, and just show you how it interacts together, because it does by default. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. right, Sam studied a lot of psychology too. Nice. Have you noticed or came across that a lot of people who are neurodivergent usually end up being really interested in psychology? And I believe that's usually due to us feeling like, why am I so different? I need to find out what happens in my brain and if I'm normal because I don't feel normal. So that tends to be like the starting point to like figure things out, and you go from there. All right. Then the last page, she talks about how the chakras regulate spirit. The last page of what we're going over. How the last, one more second. How the chakras regulate spiritual energy to their corresponding physical systems. For example, the third eye, the throat, the heart, solar plexus, the sacral root, etc., etc. I have a little interesting story. When I was first kind of being open with, when I was first stepping out of the broom closet, I went to a metaphysical shop for the first time, or a witchy shop for the first time, and I was like a little nervous and whatever. I mean, I was old enough to make my own decisions. I, moved out, was independent, whatever, but I still had that like base thing of always being worried of being caught. So it was the first time I ended up going to an actual physical store, physically, myself, completely. And I remember like walking through it and just being like, ooh, shiny things, rocks, pretty candles, fun incense and whatever. And I was just really curious about it. And I was like walking along, looking at all the decorations, just like feeling the vibes. And I haven't really explored a lot of kind of like everything. Like I knew the chakras back then, but I didn't recognize like the symbols for it. Like I just knew about the chakras. I knew that they had like those their own symbols, terms, things from their background, you know what I'm talking you know what I'm talking about. I didn't like fully recognize them. And so I was looking up at their ceiling, and they had these like huge panels with like various colors and those type of symbols on there. And it was like dispersed straight throughout the store. And I was walking through it, and I asked, and like I got to the point that I got curious, and like it's kind of like remind me like, okay, are those like the chakra systems and whatever? So I asked the lady that was behind the counter, and I'm just like, what are those things up there? And she goes, oh, those are like the chakra systems. And the yeah, she explained to me that like those are the chakra systems, the ranges of colors, and that each symbol corresponds to a different chakra. And she pointed out like that is the crown chakra, that is that chakra, blah 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 blah. And the one right above me, and she's like, that is the throat chakra. And then she goes, almost every single person that asked about what those are asked it when they got under that throat chakra part. So the spiritual aspect of your throat chakra translates over to your individual self of your voice. And for you to be freely outspoken with the things. And I was just kind of like, okay, that's cool. So even little simple decorations that that a person doesn't like completely 100% know the exact meaning or representation of it are still affected by the chakras, by the symbols, by the correspondences with it. You can't get away from it. It's an organ in your body. It's a thing. So that was like a really cool experience. Okay. That covers the things I wanted to talk about. It was a lot. Good night. Thank you for joining. That was a lot. I think this was quite a good discussion. I like the little things that I ended up mentioning and kind of like coming up with. And I would like to build off some of them. So I will do so. I'll make the blog post for it and all of that to just recap what we talked about and maybe add a little bit more details and insights. If you are, reading and following along with the book, let me know how you're feeling about it. If you found something, interesting. If you're not following along, just hanging out, let me know if something I mentioned like really resonated with you and you found helpful. That would be great. You don't need to be reading any of the books to join the Witchy Chats. Just come hang out. I'd love to have you here. Okay, then for our next meeting next week, we're going to read the next 15 pages. So from page 149 to 114. Is that 15 pages? Yeah, okay, to 114. No, wait, no. My math ain't mathing. Why did I say 114? Hold on. Don't judge me. I'm usually more prepared than this. To page 163. Okay. So that means if you don't have like the page numbers for you, it will be from the fivefold self topic until the end of the air cleansing techniques. So right before, wait, is that it? Yeah. Right before the tools of elemental fire section. Okay. I think that wraps it all up. I am very happy that, you joined, you came to hang out, and that you were present and active in the conversations and that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to move forward with it. We're like a third of the way done with this book. That's exciting. A little more and we can start thinking of what else we can do after this one is done. And I love learning with you. I loved hearing all of your, experiences, your suggestions, that kind of thing. And it was just, great. So thank you very, very much. I look forward to hanging out with you next week. And I'll see you on my next live, my next videos. Do the whole liking, subscribing, leaving a comment to help, the algorithm things like me. Follow me on Instagram. Check out my website for more, insightful things, more magical mayhem, and all of that. I will see you next time. I love you all. Bye.